If you've been feeling the weight of the world lately, if every headline seems to tighten your chest and the noise of it all just feels a little too loud, you're not alone. It's a lot to carry, isn't it? All the uncertainty, the sadness, the sense that things are somehow harder than they used to be. I think so many of us are quietly wondering how to keep our hearts open without feeling overwhelmed or afraid. So this is for that part of you, the part that wants to stay kind and hopeful, even when the world feels heavy. It's called Finding Calm When the World Feels Heavy. And together we'll explore how to stay soft, steady and human, even in hard times. Welcome. Come on in, get comfy and let's sit for a while. Sometimes it feels like the world has forgotten how to exhale. Every day there's another headline that makes your chest tighten, another story that leaves you wondering how we got here, and how on earth we're supposed to keep going, keep caring, keep believing in goodness when it all feels so fragile. You scroll for a few minutes just to catch up, and suddenly you're sitting there with a knot in your stomach, feeling smaller, sadder, a little more helpless than you did before. You tell yourself, I'll just look for a minute. But those minutes have a way of turning into hours, don't they? And before you know it, you're falling into the noise again. The fear, the outrage, the sorrow, all tumbling over each other like waves that never stop. It's a lot for a human heart to hold. There was a time when the hardest news we heard was what our neighbour told us over the fence, or what we read once a day in a paper at the breakfast table. Now it's constant. Every screen, every feed, every minute, the world comes rushing at us. And because we're caring, feeling creatures, we absorb it. We carry it around in our bodies, the ache, the heaviness, the helplessness. It's not just what's happening out there, it's what it awakens in here, in our hearts, in that quiet, tender part of us that wants so desperately for the world to be kind. I've spoken to so many people who say the same thing lately. I feel anxious all the time. I'm tired of being afraid. I just want to feel safe again. And you know, I think what we're really craving isn't ignorance or indifference, it's balance. We want to be informed but not overwhelmed. We want to care but not collapse. We want to stay open-hearted but not broken by every new heartbreak. That's a delicate dance, isn't it? Because caring deeply is part of being human, but so is self-preservation. And the truth is, we can't hold the whole world's pain in our hands. We were never meant to. Some nights I sit by the fire with a cup of tea and I think about how much our nervous systems are carrying these days, how much input we take in. Images, stories, arguments, opinions, and how little time we give ourselves to process any of it. Our ancestors, in their quieter worlds, would have had space to walk it off, to sit under a sky unlit by headlines, to breathe. Now we refresh, we scroll, we keep the noise close, even in bed, and slowly, almost without noticing, we start to live in a state of constant alert. No wonder we're exhausted. No wonder our minds crave stillness. Our hearts crave safety. Sometimes people say to me, I feel guilty turning away from it all, like I'm not doing enough. And I always tell them, you are allowed to look after your own peace. You can care about the world and take breaks from the noise. You can hold compassion without holding constant fear. And you can love people, help people, and still say, I need to rest now. That doesn't make you selfish, it makes you sustainable, because we can't pour calm into the world if we're running on anxiety ourselves. You see, the heaviness of the world can trick us into thinking that the only way to be good is to suffer alongside it. But that's not what the world needs from us. The world doesn't need more despair. It needs steady hearts, quiet anchors, people who can stand in the storm and say, there's still light here. I can still see it. And that kind of steadiness, that grounded, gentle presence, comes from knowing when to turn down the noise, from giving ourselves permission to breathe, to step back, to protect the small, sacred space inside us where peace still lives. If you're feeling the weight of the world right now, please know you're not weak for finding it heavy. You're simply awake. You're human. The fact that it hurts means your empathy is still intact. It means you still care. And that is a beautiful thing. But caring deeply doesn't mean carrying everything. You can put some of it down. You can choose to rest your mind. You can let the light in again. Because even in times like these, perhaps especially in times like these, we need people who remember how to breathe. Because even in the heaviness, there are still quiet places to rest. And sometimes, those small, steady spaces are where healing begins. There comes a point, after all the noise and the worry, when you realise that peace isn't something the world gives you. It's something you have to build for yourself. Not because you're turning away from what's happening, but because you want to stay human in the middle of it. That's what choosing to stay soft really means. It's not weakness, it's strength in its gentlest form. It's deciding over and over again not to let the chaos outside you drown out the calm inside you. These days, that calm takes intention. It doesn't just happen. You have to create space for it, protect it like a small flame in a gust of wind. And sometimes that means setting boundaries around what you take in, not out of ignorance, but out of wisdom. It might mean checking the news once a day instead of every hour. It might mean muting certain accounts, or choosing not to scroll through endless arguments at midnight. That doesn't mean you've stopped caring. It means you've learned the art of pacing your empathy. Because empathy, beautiful as it is, can burn you out if you never let it rest. Some people worry that stepping back means giving up. But I think of it more like breathing. You can't inhale forever. At some point, you have to exhale and let go to release, to make room for what's next. The same goes for compassion. If you take in too much pain without pause, you start to lose the capacity to help anyone, even yourself. So let yourself step back when you need to. Take a walk, listen to the birds, make a meal from scratch. Touch something real again. The earth, the wind, the hum of everyday life. Because that's where balance begins, in small, tangible acts of presence. There's something quietly revolutionary about refusing to be hardened. In a world that often rewards outrage, it takes courage to stay kind, to keep showing up with gentleness when anger feels easier, to offer grace when the air around you is thick with fear. But here's the secret. Every act of kindness you choose is an act of resistance against despair. Smiling at a stranger, checking on a neighbour, sharing a meal, writing a kind comment instead of a critical one. These are not small things. I found a great way to help me keep grounded is by helping others. I don't mean in some grand gestures, but in lots of little ways. I do lots of crafts. I love to sew and crochet. So I make quilts and crochet blankets for charity. I also make lots of smaller projects like hats, scarves, teddies and shawls. It makes me feel like I'm doing my bit to help keep the balance in the world. I know I'm just one person and it's a tiny thing in this big old world, but if we all did a tiny thing to help in some small way, it would add up and create a huge revolution. It's how the world begins to heal, one tiny softness at a time. Some nights, when I feel the heaviness creeping back in, I light a candle. It's a small ritual, quiet, almost symbolic, but it reminds me that light doesn't need to be loud to matter. One small flame can change the feeling of an entire room, and we can be that flame, each of us in our own small ways, steady, quiet and real. That's what softness looks like in times like these, showing up with calm when everything feels uncertain, offering patience when tempers flare, listening when everyone else is shouting. You don't need to fix the whole world. You just need to keep a bit of gentleness alive within it. Maybe your softness is the text you send to a friend who's struggling. Maybe it's tending a garden. Maybe it's refusing to give in to cynicism, even when it feels safer to be numb. Whatever it looks like, it matters, because the world doesn't just need louder voices, it needs steadier hearts. Hearts like yours, still open, still hopeful, still choosing kindness when it would be easier to look away. Because peace doesn't always begin on the world stage. Sometimes it begins right where you are, in your home, in your heart, in the way you speak and the way you love. Somewhere along the way you realise you can't fix everything, and strangely that realisation brings relief, because it frees you to focus on what you can do, the small human everyday things that ripple out further than you'll ever know. We live in a world that tells us that only big, loud acts matter. But the truth is, quiet compassion changes more than we think. It's in the way you listen, really listen, when someone needs to talk. It's in the patience you show when you're tired and tempted to snap. It's in the way you choose to believe that kindness still has value, even when the world seems determined to prove otherwise. I think of compassion as a kind of steady light, not bright and blinding, but soft and constant, like a lantern in the dark. It doesn't demand attention, it simply keeps glowing. When you move through the world that way, calm, gentle, kind, you're not ignoring reality, you're helping to balance it. You become part of the quiet antidote to chaos, a reminder to anyone watching that tenderness still exists. And maybe that's what the world needs most right now. Not more noise, but more warmth. Not more opinions, but more understanding. There's a kind of courage in compassion, because to stay soft in hard times means opening your heart even when it might break. It means choosing connection over cynicism, empathy over apathy. It means looking for the good and sometimes being the good, even when it feels like no one's noticing. But here's the secret. Someone always notices. A kind word can echo quietly in someone's heart for years. A gentle gesture can restore someone's faith in humanity. Even a small act of grace, a smile, a thank you, a moment of patience, can remind a weary person not all hope is lost. When the world feels loud and frightening, compassion is the language that cuts through the noise. It says, I see you, I care, I'm here, and we all need to hear that, especially now. You don't need to have the answers. You don't need to be endlessly strong. You just need to keep showing up with love. That's enough. Because when one person chooses calm, It makes space for others to breathe. When one person stays kind, it gives others permission to soften. And slowly, quietly, that's how the world begins to change. So if you've been feeling overwhelmed, remember, it's okay to take a breath. It's okay to rest, to step back, to let the news go unread for a day or two. The world doesn't need you to carry all its weight. It needs you to stay well enough to keep loving. That's the real work of peace, to hold your heart open, even when the world feels closed, to find small ways each day to remind yourself and others that gentleness still matters. So tonight, if you can, turn off the noise for a while. Step outside, look at the sky. Remember that there's still beauty out there, quiet, constant, ancient, and that in your own small way, by choosing calm, by choosing kindness, you are adding to it. You are helping to steady the world just by being gentle in it. And that, my friend, is no small thing. You know, I think it takes a quiet kind of courage to stay gentle in a world like this, to keep showing up with kindness when fear and anger seem to be the loudest voices in the room. But that's how peace begins, not in grand gestures, but in the small, steady choices we make every day. Turning down the noise, choosing empathy over outrage, being the calm in someone else's storm. If you've been doing your best to stay kind and grounded lately, please know that it matters. Your gentleness matters. Your calm presence helps steady more hearts than you realise. So tonight, as you rest, let yourself exhale. You don't have to hold the whole world. You just have to hold on to hope and let it spill quietly into the space around you. Thank you for sharing your time with me. Take gentle care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.